down. 47?
Yes, sir.
48?
Yes, sir.
49?
Yes, sir.
50?
Yes, sir.
51?
Yes, sir.
Ara Town School, Bihar, 1922. A 14-year-old with dreams in his eyes is about to step across the threshold to a new life. No small step for this boy, fatherless at 6, to have made this journey from his poverty-stricken home in the backwoods. But he was brilliant, and he had a dream. He stumbled across that first threshold. A new water pitcher installed specially for him on the school veranda was marked untouchable. The young boy smashed the pitcher with a stone. The next day brought a new pitcher. It met with the same fate. This continued till the authorities had to yield, and there was only one common pitcher on the school veranda. A small step and a giant leap forwards. The first of the many battles the young dreamer would have to fight and win. The boy's name? Jagjivan Ram. His daughter and Minister for Social Justice and Empowerment, Meera Kumar, looks back to that day.
He shattered not the pitcher, but what lay behind it, that age-old practice of inhuman discrimination which heaped untold hurt and insults on the likes of him. And what followed can only be termed revolutionary by all standards in the Bihar of 1920s. The school veranda thereafter had only one earthen pitcher for all.
बबुआ के घुंघुर घुंघुर के सिया बहुत मन भावे बहुत मन भावे लहो ललना चंदवा सूरज बाके जोत चमके दीन रैनन हो ललना चंदवा.
Almost 99 years ago, on April 5th, 1908, Babuji was born in a traditional Shivnarayan family of a secluded village, Chandwa, in what is now Bhojpur district of Bihar. He was given the name Jagjivan Ram, taken from a verse of Guru Ravidas. It was naturally an occasion for celebration and revelry. Little did Jagjivan's parents, Sant Shobhiram, a priest of the community, and Basanti Devi, realize that the child who had many siblings would grow into one of the most illustrious sons of not only Bihar, but of the entire country. Shobhiram passed away when Jagjivan Ram was only 6 years old. Basanti Devi had promised him that she would spare no effort to educate her young son.
नदिया किनारे आवा सोने के कटोरिया में दूध भात ले ले आवा बाबुआ के मुहुआ में घुटू चंदा मामा आरे आवा बारे आवा.
While she rocked him to sleep in her melodious voice, it was her dreams and her determination which seeped into the consciousness of the young Jagjivan Ram. Meera Kumar.
It was his mother who made sure that despite heavy odds, he receives the highest education possible at that time without making any kind of compromise. You see, at that time, it was very common that if there is a child from an economically weak section of the society needs help, then there was an effort to convert them to any other religion. I have no problems with that. But one should adopt a religion because you believe in it, not because you think of gaining something out of it. So my grandmother said that she will work very hard and educate her son, not because she would want him to get converted. So it was a stand which he took. That is what my father learned in his life, to take stands on things without thinking of personal gains. So this is what she inculcated in him.
Jagjivan's village school teacher Kapil Muni Tiwari had seen the spark in the alert child's persona, and he helped the Dalit boy to overcome the fears, apprehensions and prejudices that could have marred his psyche. Blessed with the care and guidance of his mother, training of his mind by his affectionate teacher, and prompted by his dreams for the future, Jagjivan Ram crossed all social barriers and rose to the high office of Deputy Prime Minister. The entire nation affectionately called him Babuji. What Jagjivan's primary school teacher had seen very early in his life, no less a person than Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, founder of the Banaras Hindu University, noticed a little later. Bhishma Narayan Singh, an eminent political leader from Bihar and a former governor, remembers.
When Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya ji visited Patna, so he came to know about the talent of Babu Jagjivan Ram ji. Since beginning, he was such a bright student, one can't imagine. Very talented student, but born in a very, very poor family. So Malviya ji actually decided that he should study in Banaras University. So he came to Banaras University and he was studying there. But you see, so much untouchability was there at that time that sometimes some awkward situation also arose. But he continued his study, but later on he had gone to Calcutta University. This is the story.
Jagjivan's wide-ranging interests brought him in contact with eminent literateurs like Munshi Premchand, Hariaud and Ramchandra Shukla at Banaras, and with revolutionary figures like Manmath Nath Gupt, M.N. Roy, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose and Dr. Bidhan Chandra Roy at Calcutta. He came out of college with an excellent academic record and a BSc degree. He also learned how to combine the quests for bread, beauty and revolution in one life. While Jagjivan Ram was lured with many offers of a comfortable life, he plunged into the freedom movement like a duck to water. Going to jail for the freedom of the country was a great honor for him, as for Gandhi, Nehru, Azad and other fighters for freedom. Because of his excellent vision of India and its people, his great organizational capacity and his brilliance as an orator in Hindi, English, Bengali and Bhojpuri, he went ahead in his political life. He proved to his colleagues and followers that he was not only a dreamer, he was also a warrior with a determination to win. And victory he achieved in all his battles. He became a member of the Bihar Legislative Council in 1936 and was subsequently elected unopposed to the Bihar Legislative Assembly as a candidate of the Bharatiya Depressed Classes League, an organization he had founded. Thereafter, he was invited to join the Congress with his group of MLAs. In 1946, he became the Minister of Labour in the interim government at the centre. He was the youngest member in the interim government's cabinet. Following independence, Babu Jagjivan Ram won all the Lok Sabha elections from the constituency of Sasaram in Bihar in 1952, 1957, 1962, 1967, 71, 77, 1980 and 1984, a record for any member of parliament. Veteran journalist Inder Malhotra reminisces about Babu Jagjivan Ram's debut in independent India's parliament in 1952.
You see, the first long talk as a reporter that I had with him was in the first general election in 1952. I was very young, and he, of course, was the youngest member in Mr. Nehru's cabinet. That's when I first realized that he was brief, to the point, and absolutely crystal clear. And one question I asked him, I said, you represent the poor in this country, the downtrodden. I said, isn't it a shame that 5 years have passed and nothing very much has happened? For God's sake, do something about it. And he put his hand on my shoulder. We were driving in a car. He said, young man, if we can abolish poverty in 25 years, it will be a miracle. I don't think we can do that even in 25 years. But slowly and slowly, if we work in the right direction.
Inder Malhotra adds,
3 aspects which greatly impressed me was a man of tremendous patience, never lost his temper, man of great ability as an administrator and as well as a speaker. To give you one example, after the liberation of Bangladesh, while the Farakka waters were still a problem, Indira Gandhi sent him to Dhaka. And on arrival there, he told Sheikh Mujib, and they spoke in Bengali all through. He was educated in Calcutta, so Bengali all through, and said that when I come here and you speak to me, there is no question of not having an agreement. Similarly, in a short conversation with Kissinger, he was terse and to the point and told them that if refugees keep coming from Bangladesh, India cannot sit idle.
Babu Jagjivan Ram held several portfolios at the centre: labour, railways, transport and communication, food and agriculture and defence, before becoming the Deputy Prime Minister in 1979. The period 1967 to 1970 was a remarkable chapter in the country's history. From a severe drought in 1967 to a green dream, the Green Revolution. Eminent agricultural scientist Dr. M.S. Swaminathan remembers a particular decision by Babu Jagjivan Ram as the Minister of Agriculture.
The original Green Revolution started with 2 Mexican varieties of wheat sent by Dr. Norman Borlaug. Now they were somewhat reddish color, but these were the ones which were giving 2 to 3 tons more yield than the normal varieties which were growing. But in the market there was a differentiation. Just like basmati rice and normal rice, the sharbati or amber wheat got much more money than the red variety. For the simple reason, chapatis made of red may be looking a little red color. But what the critical decision Mr. Jagjivan Ram took was that government should buy all wheat because protein content of these wheats was even higher than our normal wheat. Nutritive quality was much better, but appearance was different. And so he said, no, for appearance we can't make a difference. Therefore, he offered to buy from farmers at the same price, any wheat, sharbati wheat, the Mexican wheat. This one important decision which he took was responsible for the Green Revolution, because if there was a big difference in prices, as some of the officers wanted, then the next year the farmers would not have grown high-yielding varieties.
The immense success of Babu Jagjivan Ram as a minister was because of the unique combination of scientific temper, management skills, and traditional wisdom that was an important feature of his personality. This combination enabled him to take crucial decisions in national interest very promptly. Dr. Swaminathan elaborates.
Babu Jagjivan Ram was one of those who knew science is the prime mover of change, whether it is in defense, whether it is in agriculture, whether it is in industry. But one thing he was clear, that we should not also neglect traditional wisdom. We should not look down upon indigenous knowledge or people's wisdom. In that way, he had always tried to bring about a synthesis, a mixture of both modern science and traditional knowledge. When he went to Defense Ministry, I think he gave a very big push to modernization of the equipment for the defense services. In agriculture, at his time, in his period, number of new institutions were opened up, number of new projects were opened up, number of new agriculture universities were opened up. The scientific temper comes from his commitment to a society in which people don't use external factors like religion, caste, community to taking decisions. So I would think that he is one who linked science and society much more closely than others. because he thought science must serve society. I would call him the author of humanistic science and scientific humanism.
Mr. R.K. Puri, formerly additional member traffic of the Railway Board, gives an instance of Babu Jagjivan Ram's astute way of taking the right decision, even if it went against the briefing provided to him about any matter.
This was a public representation received from Bihar for increasing the stoppage of an important mail train at a station called Dairy on Son, and he passed it on to the Railway Board and the other authorities to examine and come back with their comments. And in due course of time, the file was built up with all the arguments marshalled against acceptance of the public representation. It was argued that there were operational difficulties in increasing the stoppage of this train at Dairy on Son. That financially it would be a disastrous proposition to stop this train, that it would affect the running of other important mail and express trains which were following it, that there was hardly any public demand and the number of passengers likely to board this train did not justify increasing the stoppage. This was endorsed all the way at all levels of the hierarchy. So after going through the entire file, I saw one line order of the minister saying that with effect from a particular date, I think it was in June or July 1959, the train number so-and-so will stop at Dairy on Son from early morning 6:35 or 6:38 to 6:40, and that was the finality in the case. The orders were implemented. There were subsequently no operational difficulties or financial losses reported. I have quoted this from my recall of reading of the file long back to show that Babuji could be very incisive and very decisive.
The year is 1970. Babuji had just taken over as the Minister of Defence when the clouds of war loom on our horizon. War becomes unavoidable in December 1971. A war that was a conclusive victory. Mrs. Meera Kumar remembers those tumultuous days.
Here was a war which we were not fighting for our own motherland. And the soldiers are trained to make the supreme sacrifice for their own motherland. But to inspire them and to electrify them to a certain extent as to make them give up their lives for some other cause, for another country. So that it was a difficult and a very different war, and it was a very brief and a very decisive war also. And then there was a surrender of over 93,000 soldiers, which has never ever happened. We had 93,000 prisoners of war. Pakistan has made so many complaints against us, but not once have they said that their prisoners of war were ill-treated. This is another plus point. You see, my father had declared that every time, whenever there is invasion, aggression, the forces of the enemy come to our land and trample our land and go away, we will not allow them to do this time.
How did the war affect Babuji personally or his family? Was there any panic or anxiety on his part?
My father never spoke to me about the war because confidentiality and the secrecy of it had to be maintained. He never discussed it, but throughout those 13 days, from 3rd of December to the 16th of December, I never saw him with a grim face. He always had a smile. So even when the 7th Fleet, the Enterprise arrived, the entire country was worried. But whenever I saw my father's face with a smile, I knew that we were safe. And I asked him, I said, what is going to happen now? So he said, what is going to happen? You will see that this 7th Fleet is going to beat a hasty retreat. And the very next day, the same happened.
Kuldeep Nair, a very senior journalist who had known Babu Jagjivan Ram intimately, talks of his stewardship of India's defence.
He would be going into the details of the weapons the government would buy, things like that. In fact, people like Sam Manekshaw, who was in charge of the 71 war, so he used to say, whenever there was any difficulty, whenever there was any kind of impediment in the way, he would go to Babuji and things would be cleared in no time, whether it was procurement of weapon or raising of troops or anything like that.
Colonel Anil Bhatt, retired, a former spokesman of the Indian Army, speaks about the unique way of communication with the defence personnel that Babuji adopted.
I went to the defence archives where I went through a few hundred photographs, and it is when I came to the section of the 71 war that I was able to lay my hands on 7 to 8 photographs of Mr. Jagjivan Ram going to forward areas and meeting troops, interacting with them and delivering what the British referred to as stump speeches. Now, a typical scene that came through from some of these photographs was somewhere close to a village in Punjab where an army unit is deployed. Mr. Jagjivan Ram has come in an open jeep. The jeep is standing close by and he's sitting in a very relaxed manner on a charpoy with his trusty walking stick. And all around him are officers and jawans of that unit. The photographs, as a good photograph, as they say, can speak a million words. That's what came out from that, from some of these photographs. The man was going around. He was able to sort of get to the grassroots of the Indian Army by interacting the way he was. The other way of interacting is that you're sitting on a stage and a few hundred army personnel are sitting lined up almost 100 yards wide and 100 yards in length. Now, that was not the style in which he addressed all these groups. Wherever he went, he stopped his jeep where there was a largish group and got out of it and, on whatever, somewhere it was a charpai, somewhere it was a chair. What emerged from these photographs was that here was a man who was quite relaxed, interacting with soldiers. And I thought that this certainly must have made a difference.
While inaugurating Babuji's birth centenary celebrations on the 5th of April this year, former President Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam said,
Friends, when I was a scientific advisor at Defense Ministry in 1992, I joined there as a scientific advisor to the Defense Minister. I had an opportunity to look at the wartime files of the Defense Ministry when Babu Jagjivan Ram was the Raksha Mantri. 2 things I noticed, all of us have to learn. 2 things I noticed. He had real-time decision on the file. Any file goes to him, does not wait more than few hours, the decision is given. Also, he asked the administrators and bureaucrats to list the possible options. They don't say to the minister. They have to list the possible options. What are the impacts? They have to write, and then based on that, minister will take the decision. All he asked the bureaucrat to list the possible options and the consequence of each option so that he could take proper decision to any particular situation.
Babu Jagjivan Ram was deeply influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. He was an immaculate user of khadi. He used Gandhian thought in all his campaigns, political and social, from his days as an ordinary worker to those as the Congress President and the Deputy Prime Minister. Nirmala Deshpande, committed Gandhian and Member of Parliament, had known Babuji from her childhood days.
Well, my father, his name was P.Y. Deshpande. He was member of the Provisional Parliament. Babuji and my father used to discuss about Gandhian way. And Babuji said, we want change in the society, but by peaceful means, as Gandhiji wanted us to do. So his faith in the peaceful means, in changing the whole society and fighting for the rights of the scheduled caste and the downtrodden, but by Gandhian means. In fact, that was his biggest contribution to the Indian history.
Babu Jagjivan Ram could be a very tough political adversary on the chessboard of politics, but he never allowed political battles to sour his personal relationships. Inder Malhotra remembered the advice Indira Gandhi gave to Rajiv Gandhi and his colleagues to benefit from an interaction with Babuji, even when the two leaders were in different political camps.
Look, there are very few parallels to a man like him, completely backward, coming from day one to be part of Nehruji's setup, first-rate administrator, excellent speaker in parliament, taking the rough with the smooth. Remarkable thing is that whether he was for Indira or against her, Mr. Arun Nehru and Mr. Rajiv Gandhi also, both have told me this, that at a time when relations with Jagjivan Ram were bad, Indira Gandhi used to tell both कि जाके बाबूजी से मिलाओ कुछ सीखोगे.
Babu Jagjivan Ram was a man of many paths. His political struggles and hectic life did not keep him away from an affectionate family environment. Mrs. Meera Kumar emotionally offers the childhood memories of her father.
He inculcated in me a habit of reading. He made sure that when I was a very young girl, for my birthday, he gave me a small almirah full of books. A most precious gift a father can give to his daughter. And he also told me how to keep it. He took an old calendar and took out numbers from it and told me to stick 1, 2, 3, 4 on those books and make my own library.
A birthday gift, a gift of a lifetime, and a lifetime of selfless giving. A man of action and a dreamer of dreams. On his birth centenary year, a nation pays tribute to this father figure, who leaves behind his footprints on the sands of time.